Today we will talk about topic 8, inland marine and ocean cargo insurance. When we talk about inland marine insurance in the United States, it refers to two different meanings. First is ocean marine insurance, which refers to the international meaning of marine insurance. Inland marine insurance, on the other hand, covers a wide range of usually land-based risks that have some link to transportation or communication. In the early 1900s, in most states in the United States, an insurance company could be licensed to transact only fire and marine insurance, or casualty insurance and surety, or life insurance. This rigid regulation scheme made it impossible for a fire or casualty insurance company to meet all the coverage needs for a customer. For example, fire insurers could not insure crime perils in their policies because crime perils were a subject of casualty insurance, and casualty insurers could not include fire insurance in their policies. An individual or a business that want to insure its property against both fire and theft had to purchase two policies from two insurance companies. Marine insurance, on contrast, could provide all risk in insurance on marine exposures. With these all-risk policies and experience in underwriting goods in transit, marine insurers were well equipped for providing the new coverage, which was a logical extension of marine insurance. Therefore, by the late 1920s, fire insurers were losing premium to marine insurers written inland marine policies on properties that had formerly been covered by fire insurance. Fire insurance forms and rates were more strictly regulated than inland marine forms and rates, and therefore could not compete as effectively. Fire insurers felt threatened by inland marine insurance and viewed it as erosion on the fire insurance business. To resolve the resulting dispute between fire underwriters and marine underwriters, insurance regulators in 1933 introduced a nationwide marine definition, which most states adopted as regulation back then. The nationwide marine definition restricted that the marine insurers to cover the loss exposures included in the definition. All other exposures could be covered only by approved fire insurance forms and rates. Today, the nationwide marine definition was no longer used as a definition of what types of loss exposures an insurance company could underwrite. However, the definition, with some modernization, continued to be used for classification purpose. For inland marine insurance, there are two filing classes. The first is non-filed class. This class, the marine insurance business, neither need to file their policy forms and they do not need to file their policy rates with the state insurance department. So the biggest advantage for the non-filing classes would be that it allows a lot more flexibility because the forms can contain whatever provisions as long as agreed by the insurance company and the policyholder together. In addition, the form does not have to be filed for approval with the state insurance department, and that makes the non-filing classes a lot more efficient. The filed classes, on the other hand, would need to file the policy forms as well as their rates, or sometimes they do not have to file their rates depending on how the regulation of the state is. But if they are filing classes, they need to file either one or both. So generally, a filing class of business is the one that has a large number of insurers with pretty much similar loss exposures. So now let's take a look at the general characteristics of inland marine policies. First, what about the coverage? Inland marine policies almost always provide an element of coverage for property in transit or at locations other than the insurer's promises. And it covers loss exposures in a little bit different way, so that some inland marine policies may cover loss of business income and extra expense in certain circumstances. It provides a broad coverage of perils. As we learned in previous chapters, open perils coverage is now available in standard commercial property forms. However, the open perils coverage provided in inland marine policies is often subject to fewer exclusions. In addition, there are two unique valuation provisions in inland marine insurance. First, the invoice value. It values covered property at its invoice value, including the cost of freight. Likely, this type of valuation will be used in policies covering property in transit between buyers and sellers. The agreed value method is designed as an insured and the insured agrees at the time the policy is written. It decides the maximum amount that will be paid in the event of a total loss. This type of valuation method is most likely to be used when insuring fine arts or other property that is difficult to value objectively. Next, let's take a look at the transportation loss exposures. In this session, we will investigate how the exposures are covered. Specifically, what are the exceptions and who is responsible for the loss? Due to the fact that the shipment needs to go through multiple transactions before it can reach its final destination, the question of who owns the goods during the course of transit is very important. It usually depends on common terms of sale. So here I give you multiple terms of sales. First, the X point of origin. Under this term of sale, buyer will be responsible for any losses that occurs after taking delivery of the goods. The FOB vessel, in which FOB refers to free on board. Under this term of sale, buyer assumes responsibility as soon as the goods are placed aboard the vessel at the port named in the terms. For example, FOB vessel, Port of San Diego. FAS vessel, in which FAS refers to free alongside. Under this term of sale, the buyer assumes responsibility for loss as soon as goods are placed alongside the vessel at the port named in the terms. For example, FAS vessel, port of something. Finally, CIF referred to the cost, insurance, and freight. Under this term of sale, seller quotes a price that includes the cost of insurance and all transportation charges, which includes freight, incurred to the named destination. The buyer assumes responsibility for loss or damages as soon as goods are placed into the custody of the ocean carrier or delivered on board the vessel. During the transaction, there are two types of carriers who may be responsible for the loss. The first type of carriers are called common carriers. They're either airlines, railroads, or trucking companies that furnish transportation to any member of the public seeking their offered services, such as UPS and FedEx. The other type of carrier is called contract carriers. They are carriers that furnish transportation service to shippers with whom they have contracts. So for the common carriers of good by land, there are 5 exceptions to cargo liability that apply to the common carrier of goods in surface, in another word, by land transit. So let's take a look at the 5 exceptions. First, acts of God. For example, During the occurrence of Hurricane Sandy, your transportation may got delayed, and due to the fact that it is occurrence of nature, it would not be considered as the responsibility of the common carrier. The second type of exception would be the acts of public enemy, and the third type is exercise of public authority. The fourth type would be shipper's fault or neglect. For example, you're transporting glassware, okay, and you did not use a unique package that prevent the glassware to break, and therefore if it is due to the shipper's neglect, it would not be covered. It would not be considered as the responsibility of the carrier. Finally, the inherent vice. For example, if you are transporting perishable goods such as lettuce or milk or something like that, without certain refrigeration, you simply put it on the truck. If those perishable goods were ruined during the transportation, it would not be considered as the responsibility of the common carrier. The other type of carrier, as we mentioned before, is the contract carriers. A contract carrier's liability for cargo loss typically depends on the terms of the shipping contract agreed on by the carrier and the shipper. Now, there are two regulations regulating the waterborne carriers. Depending on where the waterborne carriers are carrying the goods on, the COGSA regulates the waterborne carriers that are shipping goods in foreign trade to or from the United States by sea. The HOTA Act, on the other hand, regulates domestic shipments. However, if you are shipping your shipments in a domestic land, however you want it to be covered under the COGSA Act, you could do it as long as both the carriers and shippers agree to be subject to the COGSA. There are various types of inland marine and ocean cargo insurance policies that include common types of transportation insurance, instrumentalities of transportation and communication, equipment floaters, builder's risk and installation risks, belly and billboard policies, dealer's policies, miscellaneous inland marine coverages. Now let's first take a look at the common types of transportation insurance. The first type of common transportation insurance is the annual transit policy. From the name, we would know that it covers all shipments made or received by the insured throughout 1 year policy period. So who would like to buy this kind of policy? Well, it best serves the shippers that are organizations that have frequent incoming or outgoing shipments. The other type of common transportation insurance is the open cargo insurance. It covers all goods shipped or received by the insured during the policy term. However, that specific policy term do not have to be 1 year strictly. So it best serves an infrequent shipper. The other type of common transportation insurance is the trip transit insurance. From its name, we know that it covers a particular shipment of goods which is specified in the policy. Mail insurance covers a financial institution against the loss of securities or other negotiable instruments while in transit through specific types of mail. So as you know that these paper-based securities can go through mails and you don't need a cargo for it. So that is usually covered under mail insurance. Motor truck cargo insurance covers truckers' liability for damage to cargo of others being transported by the trucker. Another type of inland marine and ocean cargo insurance policy is the equipment floaters. That insurance policy is a category of inland marine policies covering various types of equipment, wherever it could be during the policy period. There are two most important types of equipment floaters covering the following types of property. First, contractor's equipment that covers mobile equipment or tools while located pretty much anywhere in the coverage territory. The other type is electronic data processing equipment called EDP. It covers perils that are not covered under regular commercial property policies such as mechanical or electronic breakdown. Now, EDP policies may also cover property while in transit, while commercial property, however, usually exclude any property in transit. That is because EDP policies are not filed inland marine insurance in many states. Other favorable provisions are not usually found in the filed commercial property policies. The third type of inland marine ocean cargo insurance policy we're going to talk about is the builder's risk and installation risk. The builder's risk policies cover an entire building or other structures during the course of construction, including the building supplies and materials that will become a part of the cover structure. The entity insured is usually the owner or the builder, or perhaps sometimes both. The installation floater, on the other hand, covers a contractor's interest in building supplies or fixtures that the contractor has been hired to install. So if you compare basic purpose of builder's risk policies and installation floaters, you will find that the builder's risk policy is intended to cover an entire building through all the course of construction. However, an installer floater is intended to cover property being installed at the work site by a particular contractor, which only protects the contractor, whereas the builder's risk policy could technically protect both. The fourth type of inland marine and ocean cargo insurance policy we're going to talk about is the bill law policies. This policy covers a commercial lease potential liability for damage to their customers' goods due to the lease negligence that the buildee is usually legally liable for. And the fifth is the dealer's policy. It covers the inventory and other property of any of the types of dealers that qualify for inland marine coverage. It typically covers and insures stock in trade or inventory in trade and similar property of others. And it doesn't matter if it is on the or away from the insurer's premises. As we mentioned before, inland marine insurance used to compete with fire insurance companies because inland marine insurers are less regulated, so they may offer a more variety of coverages. Now this slide will give you a very better idea. There are the coverages that you don't normally see anywhere else, but will find in inland marine insurance coverage. The three typical miscellaneous inland marine coverages are the sign coverage, which covers neon, fluorescent, automatic, or mechanical signs. Accounts receivable coverage covers the sums the insured is unable to collect when records of accounts receivable are destroyed by a covered cause of loss. So you may be very careful about this one. So accounts receivable coverage would not cover those account not receivable for any other reasons, only if that record is destroyed due to the covered cause of loss. And the particular reason for this is insurance only cover you might need to think about it, the insurance only cover the pure risk. Now, if it is pure account receivable, but you would not be able to receive due to other factors, those are speculative risk instead of pure risk, and therefore would not be coverable from insurance. And that is exactly why we have these words, by a covered causes of loss. It's usually due to the nature. Okay. The third type of miscellaneous inland marine coverage would be the valuable papers and records insurance. It covers direct physical loss to valuable papers and records, such as an architect's blueprints and plans. And that is so much for this chapter.